know when any story takes place in a post-apocalyptic setting, at an old school, or involving children, the story is going to be incredibly messed up. The story of Vault 75 is no different. In fact, thinking about the story honestly makes me kind of nauseous. When you first stumble upon Malden Middle School, we may be looking around the building. In my instance, I've been traveling via Vertibird and get attacked by a bunch of rad scorpions and bloat flies. You know, common wasteland enemies. So, taking care of it, and watching it evaporate into dust momentarily, we are now free to enjoy exploring the Malden area. However, when we stumble upon Malden Middle School, we notice some strange crates on the other side of it. Property of Vault Tech. What the heck is Vault Tech doing at a middle school? We recognize an old bus or an old truck. This is an old Vault Tech van. I think it's technically a van, which they used to cart around merchandise, propaganda, etc. And apparently they were carting crates here. Exploring the school, the rooms of the school itself, yields little to nothing. Although we do see plenty of Vault Tech propaganda and posters littered around the place. As we look through the place, we can stumble upon what's presumably a teacher's office or a principal's office, where they have some pre-war propaganda of "Beware the Red Death," with little else. I also saw this weird poster on the wall and try to figure out what it says. I can make out like vintage something. But other than the handful of posters, there's nothing really here. If we were to go to the top floor, we get to explore another classroom and look through some lockers. These have some random loot, including cracked bowls apparently. But occasionally you'll find technical documents in the desks and lockers here, which is useful if you're playing with the Brotherhood of Steel, because Proctor Quinlan will take the technical documents. Keep in mind, these will only appear if you have a Brotherhood character. So if you're just coming here as, let's say, a Minuteman character, you're more than likely not going to see any technical documents. If we climb onto the top of this thing, we get a nice little view of the surrounding area, including the park across the street. Excuse me, I saw some Institute crows and decided I'd take a few shots at them, but a Gatling laser isn't the most precise weapon. Oh well. You can try, right? Gotta keep those Institute scumbags at bay any way possible. So, other than desks stacked on top of each other, we don't really see anything of interest. Until we see a jail cell? There's no reason why any school would have a jail cell, unless they're hiding something. So going down, we see a Malden Middle School basement. Entering this basement, we see a grisly scene. Someone pushing a wheelchair, but both people are now skeletons. Turning right, we see a vault door. And somebody walking in there? Okay. Did the vault dweller survive? Interesting insight dance. But before we actually enter the vault, let's take a quick peek around. We see a lot of rusted out pre-war vehicles hanging around in here, including a skull with a baby bottle in its mouth. Now I'm trying to think if it's like a Raider's way of deciding, oh, this place had kids in it or something like that. I don't really understand Raider humor, because I'm not a Raider. But nevertheless, there's not really all that much to see other than the pre-war death of those two people and some vehicles. So we can walk into the vault. And we find Institute synths, which kind of explains the synth we saw outside. We also see signs of violence, with a dead gunner on the ground and a destroyed machine gun turret. We have the opportunity to loot some suitcases and first aid kits, and get some pretty decent loot. And strangely enough, a lot of these lockers are filled to the brim with ammo. Now this is a school. Why would a school have cases of ammo everywhere? Unless the gunners brought it in with them. But still, it's kind of strange. So, there's not really that much to see in this room except for an admissions terminal. By selecting the first menu option, we stumble upon an entry called Press Release, where it's essentially a propaganda article written by Vault-Tec. Washington, D.C. In response to growing national concern for the safety of our children in the event of a nuclear attack, Vault-Tec officials have cooperated with local government in Malden, Massachusetts, to provide a subsidized enrollment fees for any families wishing to sign up for residency in Vault 75. The newly opened vault is attached directly to Malden's elementary school, ensuring a swift evacuation should an attack come during class time. Safeguarding the future has always been our priority, said a Vault-Tec spokesperson. The opening of Vault 75 gives us all extra peace of mind, knowing that the children of Malden will be safe, even if the worst comes to pass. Well, we do know, because we're here right now, that the worst came to pass. The next enrollment thing is called an enrollment guideline. Selecting this entry gains us access to a list of rules that the new residents of Vault 75 will have to abide by. Or, rather, some credentials to get in. As Enrollment Guidelines says, Vault-Tec has authorized special discounts and subsidies for the qualifying families. This special offer can only be extended to families meeting the following requirements. One or more enrolled family members are children under the age of 15. That is very specific, but okay. 2. Enrolled children attend public school within the township of Malden, Massachusetts. Again, that actually makes sense, because this was built in the school. And 3rd, the enrolled group includes no more than 2 adults per qualifying child. So, no single parents are allowed, or one parent cannot take a child to the vault. It has to be 2. Please note that Vault 75 also permits the individual enrollment of children for families which cannot afford to also enroll a parent. Oh, there we go. Or a parent or guardian. Next up we have special admissions protocols. Upon the activation of Vault 75, all residents must be subjected to standard admission protocols, details of which can be found in the Vault-Tec Personnel Handbook. Once residents have been verified and sanitized, children under the age of 17 are to be taken to the atrium area. There they will meet with the overseer, who will provide orientation information specific to the children. All other residents are to be taken to the holding area to await their briefing from head of security. Okay. The final entry in this terminal is a list of names of people who enrolled in this vault. We have Stephen, Ashley, David, Michael, Caleb, Joey, Elliot, and Emery. However, it seems as if all arrived except for David and Michael Turnquist, and Elliot and Emery Briggs are both siblings. So, what happened to David and Michael? Why aren't they in the vault? Why didn't they show up? Regardless, that still leaves a good 6 people, which isn't really that much. I mean, again, they have parents, but still, that's compared to every other vault we've seen, that's pretty small. After exiting the terminal, we can make sure we check every inch of this room before we leave. While we're in here, be sure to check if you're playing a Brotherhood of Steel character, be sure to check any cabinet or file in the event that they have technical documents, because you get caps per document found. And as we enter the elevator, we start the quest, Vault 75, with an objective to explore the vault. Exiting the elevator, we hear a fight, and we see gunners fighting synths. We can take care of the stragglers and interrupt their fight if we so desire, or we can just let them kill each other. But, you know, I'm a bit trigger happy, especially when you give me a giant Gatling laser to wield, so I decided to go in guns blazing. So after we loot the corpses of our fallen foes, we can now check the file cabinets, which has a lot of pencils in it and some pre-war money. Checking the desk, we find some ammunition, but that's really it. The terminal's busted out. The gunners have clearly set up shop here, with plenty of ammo boxes, duffel bags, and other things scattered around, which are, lucky for us, full of loot as long as we kill their owners. So, shuffling through some suitcases and duffel bags, we also stumble upon this door with a gunner staring us in the face. However, this requires a lab access keycard, which we don't have yet. So, I'm going to keep on walking straight. Once again, we're hearing fighting from up ahead, and we see some scents walking around. I had a bug where there's some purified water floating in the air. So, taking care of the scents that we see on ground level, one catches on fire. The other one's getting Molotov by, presumably, gunners above. We hear the gunners screaming at us, but we can still gun down the surviving synth until, you know, it's no longer a threat. Even though it was missing one of its arms. So, shooting at this gunner up top, we had another little visitor in the vault. Say hello to the mysterious stranger, everybody. And he's gone. So, while we're fighting through these enemies, let's go ahead and talk about what we've learned. The students enrolled in this school were given access to this vault, as long as their parents signed them up. About 6 people showed up, at least 6 kids, and their parents, provided both showed up. That'd be 12 people all in all. So, it seems like the vault would have plenty of room to spare. Also, not really including research staff and the overseer. And apparently security. So anyway, we can now loot the atrium since it's clear. We find some first aid kits. A lot of ammo just scattered around everywhere. I don't know if this is Gunner's Institute or do the kids just have an obsession with weapons. And here we have a really strange sight. We see a skeleton handcuffed to a pipe with a plate of dog food and old milk on the floor in front of him. I don't know if this is pre-war, if the kids did this to somebody, or if this is something that the Gunners did after the vault was abandoned. We really don't know. In any case, we have the opportunity now to walk around and loot the dead opponents. And get a better feel for this place. As we can see, the Gunners have clearly set up shop. They've set up barricades and all sorts of things. But walking into this room, we approach a cavernous area. This area has not been finished by Vault-Tec, but it didn't stop them from setting up a playground, complete with a swing set, although one swing is screwed up, and a baseball diamond, complete with a catcher's mitt, home plate, and 3 bases. They also have a seesaw and whatever the heck this thing is. I've seen these things before, I have no clue what the purpose of them are, whatever. But this doesn't really seem like the safest place for kids to be playing because there's reactors set up basically right beside the play area. You'd think that some kid would run around and get shocked. I mean, I know Vault-Tec isn't the greatest company ever, but surely they wouldn't want their subjects getting, you know, electrocuted to death by a complete accident, right? So, continuing on, we stumble upon a really sad sight. But first, before we explore it, there's a bathroom open up to us. This looks like the freaking Chamber of Secrets from Harry Potter, but ignoring that, we find a Vault-Tec lab coat in a bathroom locker. So I'm guessing this locker was shared by, whoa, baseball in the urinal. Gross. I'm assuming this bathroom, though, was shared by both science personnel and the kids in this vault. Moving on in here, we see a residential room with cigarettes. I'm not sure why a kid would need cigarettes. I'm guessing they smuggled it in here. Unless this is for some reason an adult room. again, there's bunk beds. I don't really see adults sleeping in bunk beds. But before we move on, let's come back over here. There's a picture of a dog, some flowers put out in front of it, and it looks like people have gathered around in a small funeral for what's presumed to be a child's dog that more than likely died when the bombs came down. It's nice that the kids banded together and supported one another through such a crisis. After we climb up a few stairs, we stumble upon another gunner corpse and open a door to a vault classroom. We can unlock a toolbox if we so desire, but there's really no need to if we don't want to. And we find a terminal, the only one functioning in this room. If we try to look at the lesson plans, however, they're all corrupted. Whatever they had planned is now lost to time. However, there is one thing called Uptown Heroes that works. And this is a story told in class. There was once a little girl named Sue and a little boy named Roy. Sue and Roy grew up in a very special place called Vault 75. They learned and trained and played there. Oh, how they trained. Sue and Roy were both growing up big and strong when one day Sue and Roy were asked to visit the overseer. "What's wrong, overseer?" asked Sue. "Why are you crying, overseer?" said Roy. "It's just awful!" cried the overseer, wiping a tear from her eye. "Have you children ever heard of Uptopland?" Sue and Roy blinked and shook their heads. "What's that, overseer?" they asked. "Oh, it's a terrible place," began the overseer. She told the children about Uptopland. She told them about the people living there, and how they weren't safe or strong like the children of Vault 75. Monsters attacked them and evil bandits stole their food, and it was no place for little children to grow up. No, not at all. "Those poor people!" exclaimed Sue. "Why does nobody help them?" wondered Roy. "That's just it, children," the overseer told them. "They need somebody big and strong to protect them." "Who will help them?" Sue and Roy asked. "One day, children, you will," said the overseer. "That's why you must do your best at classes and training every day, so you can grow up big and strong and go make Uptopland a happy and safe place for the poor people that live there." Sue and Roy smiled at that and ran off to their lessons, eager to help. As we can see here, even in a post-war environment, the idea of using stories to manipulate children into doing good deeds or studying harder for their classwork, that philosophy never changed. Especially when you motivate them into becoming actual real-life superheroes. Because what do kids want to be? Well, some of them want to be a lawyer, but most of them want to be superheroes. And beat up the bad guys, and save people like the poor people trapped Uptopland. After we exit the classroom terminal, we find Mentats next to a busted-out terminal. Man, even in Fallout, kids still try to find crazy ways to cheat. On the wall, we find a first aid kit, which has some basic meds. And on the wall, we can see, "For your overseer, study hard and work hard." Now, it is possible to actually make this jump over here, but I'm not hardcore parkour, so I missed. So we can turn back around and head back up the staircase to the top level of the atrium, because there's still several rooms we haven't explored. So, once we make our way back to the top, we can check these rooms out. Entering the room to the right is another residential area. We see some trash cans knocked over and foot lockers busted, but there's nothing in the dresser. But what's this? Gary? Gary. Okay, there's blocks spelling out Gary for some reason. Cool. Pork and beans under a bed. This footlocker actually has stuff in it. Once again, a lot of ammo. Strange for kids' rooms to have ammo in it. Fusion cells. Gary? There's another Gary! How many? What the? There's a third Gary underneath the nightstand! Also, there's a bobby pin box, so at least we get something out of it other than these Garys. We enter this other room, which is fortunately Gary free, and we can find some more ammo. It's another residential room, and we see signs of renovations with the foot ladder and some tools sitting atop it. I have no clue what they were trying to fix in here, but they were clearly trying to do something. Passing by the Gary room, we can head back down the staircase. I know we could just jump down, but apparently it does the ground pound thing in power armor, so I didn't want to hurt Dance. We can now onto this locker room. We can take some meds from a first aid kit and loot more ammo from a locker. Dance seems to like Vault-Tec uniforms. I don't blame him. The lab coats sure do look pretty cool. Opening up the sliding door, we enter another hallway with more lockers to our left, with some shotgun cells. And we have some post-war stuff in here too, probably brought in by the gunners. A chem box. Another room which we can't really access until we have a security card, but good to know that this is here. We also see a dead scientist with a stim pack next to his hand, and another first aid kit. But wait, I'm hearing synths. Grabbing our Gatling laser, we can walk back downstairs, pass through a security or storage room, and gunners are once again shooting at synths. So once we gun down the mercenaries and the robots, we have free domain to explore this level of the vault. We still have no clue where the heck they're keeping these security cards, but at least you can explore the areas that don't require them. Now, all these gunners and synths are very good ways to grind up on loot. But in here we have treadmills. Well, it makes sense. That terminal earlier did mention training. So I'm guessing for exercise, the kids in this vault use treadmills to keep healthy. But wait. All they had was a puny little desk fan to cool them off while they ran? That can't be healthy. I mean, I guess it's better than nothing, but okay. Checking the bodies again, we can now walk into this room, which has a bunch of these air scrubbers or radiation detectors we see in other vaults. I'm guessing after the students were admitted to this vault, they brought them in here just to check to see if they had any rads. Moving on, we find a clinic with a full-on operating table and some other stuff in here. A terminal is busted out on the wall, but there's still a working chemistry station. We find some medics on top of some Vault-Tec boxes, which is fitting due to it being a clinic. I won't complain about chems being in the possession of kids when it's in a clinic, because it's not in the possession of kids. We go down the hallway and we find a bathroom. Not really much to say here. There's a Boston Bugle on top of some sinks, but that's really it. All that's left to explore is the room where all the gunners were hanging out in. We see a bloody mess of one, and another row of lockers with a lot more ammo in it. If you guys need ammo, this is a great place to find it. And here we find an armory? I know the vault had some security officers, but still, you think that they would have like gun cabinets and stuff to keep them away from kids. And then we walk in here and Dance makes an interesting observation. Dance hit it spot on. Over here we find another dead scientist. His face buried in the murky water here. Apparently they had some flooding issue. And we find a combat simulation terminal. Dance was right. So we do have the option to restart the course. And if we do, targets appear. We can actually shoot the targets and compete in this crazy experiment. So, walking through here, we can shoot more targets, dart upstairs, more targets appear. And afterwards, we're free to explore. We can check out this makeshift building. And on the body of this gunner, we find a Vault 75 lab access card. We can also find it in this tool case. So that is how you progress further into this vault. We find the key card on the corpses. Okay, cool. But Vault-Tec modeled a full-on shooting range after some old pre-war buildings. complete with a picker-up truck. Whoa! If we travel behind this building, we can find a wooden crate that's locked up since before the war. If we take some time to pick it, we have some chance to get some Rad-X and some other chems. I also found an iron, which is okay, whatever. I can use it for steel to repair my power armor, so I'm happy. But we have what we really need, and that is the security card. But before we leave, if we so desired, we could return to the terminal. And although it doesn't show it here, if you complete the course, you can actually top the scores of the gunners. So, if you wanted to test how fast you can shoot through some targets, this could be a fun little minigame for you guys. Backing out of the training area, we can make our way back upstairs to one of the locked up doors, because now we finally have the key card required to open the door. Saving my game real quick. We can now unlock this door and face the gunners hidden behind it, including their security turret. Reloading our weapon, because we don't know how many more synths or gunners we might find, we see another split off area with another door. They have more duffel bags and ammo crates in here, and we can also loot the machine gun turret. We also see a door that leads back to the way we came. Using the same key card as we had earlier, we can open it back up, making it a quick way to backtrack if we ever need in the event that we need to leave the vault. We also see another locked up door, but we need an admin access card, which we don't have. So, off we go on another wild goose chase to another sliding door, and up another flight of stairs. This leads us to an interesting area of the vault. We see another dead scientist, and some gunners hanging out back. We can shoot at the gunners, and make quick work of our opponents. The door opens and... Legendary gunner? Hold up. Just die already. Come on, you're stuck in a vault. What do you have to live for? Thank you. Whoa. You got this, Dance. We're going to save that room for later. But exploring this room, we can take some peek in here, and we can find some pre-war money in the desk. This looks like a reception's office. Occasionally you'll find technical documents in these cabinets, but I was plumb out of luck today. Not yet, Dance. I still hear yelling. Yeah, right there. Shoot her! And she mutated, apparently. Alright, keep the lasers coming. Ah, now you peek. Everything went right over her face. Great. And now our legendary foe has been disposed of. We can take the chance to loot her corpse. She has a board. Gross. We see some busted out terminals. This is clearly where some scientists worked. But there's no lore to be found in these terminals. They're all lost to time. We do find some food. That's a bonus. But wait. Observation glass? See-through glass? They're spying on the kids from above. What looks like regular ceiling to the kids beneath is actually see-through glass. The scientists were spying on these kids this entire time. We find the medical exam room. We find this storage room. We find an overview of the hallway that we were just in a few minutes ago. We find another small resident room with another lab coat, some ammo, and various other loot. Found another busted out terminal, so no residential lore for us. But walking around, we see more glass. But we see another door leading to another room. This one overlooks the armory. And through some windows out there, we get an overlook of the training course. And also a first aid kit on the wall. But we get a nice overview of the training facility. You see some skeletons on the wall and one that is clearly a Vault-Tec scientist. Opening this door, we're back in this room again. But there is a working terminal. Let's take a peek at it. This one's the researcher's terminal. Test protocol aerobic station. Researcher guidelines aerobic station. This station exists to measure and increase aerobic ability and cardiovascular health of test subjects. As a treadmill operator, adjust incline and speed to reach and sustain target rate on the subject. Once target rate has been sustained for 60 or for over 60 seconds, gradually increase duress until peak heart rate has been reached or exceeded. Hold the phone, Vault-Tec. These are kids in elementary school to middle school. We're talking like 5 to like 14. These are young kids, and you're telling them to max out their heart rate. Because, okay, meeting it is crazy enough, but exceeding their peak heart rate, that's inhumane, Vault-Tec. That's inhumane. I mean, I guess on the flip side, too, they were trying to raise a breed of super soldiers, or superhumans. So, I guess it would make sense that they would try to push them harder to see what group would be stronger. But still, these are kids. No matter how invested they might be in becoming the next Captain America, that's still too far, Vault-Tec. The next entry is a guideline for all subjects, measuring their heart rate, starting out with age, the minimum heart rate achieved, their target heart rate, and their optimal max. And we see, to our horror, kids under the 8 were reaching a minimum of 106 beats per minute. Their target was 170, and then 212. Oh, no, over 212. That is unhealthy even for an adult. And they're forcing kids under the age of 8 to reach said heart rate. We see 9 and 10, 105 is the minimum, 168 is their target, and they've reached over 210 as their max. 11 and 12, 104 is their minimum, 166 is their target, and over 208. And the numbers continue. This keeps getting worse. They're working these poor kids to try to, under the ruse of being super soldiers, going to up top lane to help out the poor people of the Commonwealth. No, they're going to work themselves to death first before they can even leave the vault. My gosh. And the next terminal entry goes over side effects of these tests. And this is where, if the target heart rate chart didn't freak you out enough, this terminal is going to make it a lot worse. Unacceptable side effects. Cardiac arrest from too much exertion and from presumably heart attacks. And overworking the heart. And death. I wasn't kidding when I said that they were working these kids to death. This was the only way they were going to be able to stop the test, is if the kids either had a severe heart attack or died. If what was considered acceptable side effects was muscle strain, which again is acceptable from intense exercise, I get that. But nausea, vomiting, and outright fainting, outright passing out, and even after you experience such adverse reactions to such testing, they still require you to continue the exercise. And the only reason they would stop is like I said, and like this terminal says, if the subject either dies or has a severe heart attack. Vault Tech is truly setting a standard from how horrendous they can be right off the bat. They're testing on kids from the age of less than 8 all the way to 18. This is obscene and disgusting. Vault 75 is starting to make a lot more sense why we find it abandoned. Who would want to live here? Surely somebody must have tried to flee. Surely somebody had to get out, right? The next tab of this terminal is research notes, where a researcher who was apparently a former resident is taking journal entries. Starts out by saying, Nina won't believe it. I'm actually on the research team. We always thought some grown-ups must stay in the vault to help the overseer run things, even if we never saw them. I was right! Not everyone has to go to the outside world. They said I'd do more good here, and I couldn't be happier. I wish there was some way she could know I'm still here, still able to watch her. That's kind of creepy, but okay. She'll graduate in 2 years, and maybe they'll put her in the research team too if her scores are high enough. Ah, this makes sense. So it appears as if not only were they testing their ability to shoot well and their physical capabilities and how far they'd be able to run, but they were also testing their intellect. And those who were smart enough were able to go onto the research team, who got certain scores on an Unvaulted test. So at least there's some sense of order here. Our next entry from the same researcher takes place only a few months after he wrote his last one. It's only been a few months since graduation, and I already feel so much more mature than the kids I'm monitoring every day. Rohit and James both still talk about taking over the vault, like they think nobody's listening. Robbie and Becca still sneak off to huff propellant. We see that too. They'll never make it onto the research team like I did. I'm just glad I can still keep an eye on Nina. She's not doing too great on her scores, though. She never was much of an academic, like me. Her physical scores are among the best in the group, though. I'm sure she'll graduate to a good team for up top. I just hope I can see her before she goes up top. So, in mere months, he's already become arrogant from his success in the research team. Well, as the saying goes, pride corrupts, or power corrupts. Our next entry takes place, well, we don't really know, but it's titled Passing Notes. Supervisor Bissell lost some papers from his clipboard this morning. He was pretty anxious about it. He spent most of the morning searching for them and then pulled me aside to get me looking for them while he went to meet with the overseer. He really doesn't want anyone to know that they went missing. Turns out they got sucked into a vent. I could hear the pages flapping in there. There's no way I can get them unless I were to go downstairs. They spelled downstairs wrong. But I saw Rohit fish him out of the vent down there first. I'm going to tell Bissell I couldn't find him. Uh-oh. So some papers, more than likely containing some research notes, fell down a vent, and the same student who we were talking about in the last entry, who was a troublemaker, who's going to try to overthrow the vault, got their hands on it. So I'm sensing rebellion, just saying. The final journal entry is titled Shooting Range Maintenance. The range is getting really run down. I've asked the overseer whether we can have some supplies brought in to refurbish it, but was told we should work with what we've got. Then she reminded me it wasn't even my station. I didn't think it would be that big of a deal to have her ask some of the top graduates to bring supplies, but I guess they're really busy. And there's always going to be some risk involved with her going outside. Maybe she'll ask at next year's graduation when she takes the new graduates to the surface door. part of me is wondering if anybody actually left this vault at all. If this whole up top land heroes thing. Well, we know it was a story. And we know it's more than likely fake. So my guess is nobody left this vault alive. After exiting the terminal, we can take one last lap around the residential quarters up here. I missed a cap stash sitting on top of a dresser. I can stop staring at a chair for a second. I can go get it. Grab the cap stash, which has this book have random amounts. And here we find another sign that the gunners were occupying this place, some dog meat roasting on a fire. We also see them looking at the clinic from above. Kind of creepy to be watching surgeries on kids. And then we see a barricade made out of comfy pillows with a Jangles the Moon monkey on top. Kind of funky. Alright. So moving back to the top side up here, we see a busted out terminal. Taking one last lap to make sure we missed absolutely nothing. I think we're good. Let's head back up and check the room where those gunners are holding out, because there is one room that I purposely closed behind us, and that is the next room where we are going to be visiting. On the corpse of the legendary gunner we killed is the admin access card, so we can finally travel to the final location of the vault. We see some first aid kits and a nice overview of the training area. And also a Science Vault Tech bobblehead. Cool stuff. Making sure to check the file cabinets in case any Brotherhood technical documents can be recovered, but unfortunately that is not the case. So, after seeing everything we possibly can up here, we can turn around and head back towards the atrium, where we can unlock the final gated off door. Approaching the overseer door, we can slide the keycard through and walk on in. Heading up a flight of stairs, we can turn it into a computer room with a gunner private just studying one of the terminals, which is an active terminal. We'll check that out in just a second. We'll kill the scumbag here, reload the Gatling laser, and loot our little friend here. Nothing in the desk. Checking once again the file cabinets for any documents, but there's nothing. Nothing in the desk. Now let's check out this Chief Scientist terminal in a second. Looting a blood pack from a cabinet, we also notice all the other terminals are blasted out. So this leaves this one terminal. Prime Directive. Welcome to Vault 75. As outlined in your confidential briefing packet, Vault 75 is part of the top secret military program. You have been selected for your professional credentials, experience, and commitment to the improvement of the human genome. It is of the utmost importance that you follow the protocols herein. The mission of Vault 75, above all, is the refinement of human genetics. Your scientific staff will operate according to the research schedule set forth by Schlett, Braun, and Lamb. You will be working with an overseer with a background as a military officer. Your overseer will be responsible for training and maintaining the subject population you will be working with. It is important that you and your overseer maintain a healthy working relationship. Whoa. So, this was not for the preservation of kids. Preservation of the next generation of mankind. Of course not. Vault Tech would never do something so innocent. They're screwing with the human genome, with human genetics. And from the looks of it, and the fact that it's top secret, I'm guessing that something related to this project is what was on those papers that scientist lost down a vent, and that rebellious teenager found. Oh boy. The next terminal entry is clearance for Chief Scientist eyes only, because Vault 75 represents a long-term experiment in a closed environment. It will become important to replenish staff periodically. This shall be done by selective recruitment of outgoing subjects. we anticipate a certain percentage of resident population to exhibit high intellect scores, but insufficient physical capabilities to be qualified for genomic harvesting. What the frick? These subjects may be, at the overseer and chief scientist's discretion, offered the opportunity to join staff. Those who refuse should be disposed of in the same manner as unqualified outgoing subjects. Please note that all internally recruited staff should be kept strictly separate from general populace for at least 15 years. 15 years? To prevent members of the general population recognizing former residents among the staff. Only the most trusted and capable staff members should be admitted to the genomics laboratory. It is the responsibility of the chief scientist to very carefully choose these staff members and ensure they are sufficiently trained for their roles. So they were harvesting people. And like this terminal entry said, those with high enough intellect were allowed in, and those who weren't were disposed of. And those who had a high enough physical capability but not enough brains were killed, and part of them were harvested for who knows what. And those who had deficiencies in both mental and physical strengths were just killed because they weren't good enough. This wasn't about preserving humanity at all. This was about perfecting humanity. Although this time, through rigorous training and through harvesting organs, there was no such thing as an up-top-land hero. They weren't releasing anybody. Anybody who graduated with enough physical skill to be considered an up-top-land hero was killed and harvested for parts. The people who were smart enough got put on the research staff and brainwashed into their psychotic community and secluded from their former friends for 15 years. And those who weren't good enough for either harvesting or staff positions were just killed because they were worthless. This is the worst possible outcome for this vault. This is why Vault 75 absolutely disgusts me. Moving onward, we reach another terminal entry referencing what happens to the physical successes. Outgoing subjects aged 18 years with aggregate scoring of superior or excellent across key physical, mental, or social traits must be escorted to the genomics laboratory. Processing should be done on an individual basis and with great care. Remember that successful subjects will likely be capable of overpowering staff. Reiterate to the subject that a brief round of vaccinations is necessary and avoid arousing any suspicions otherwise. Each subject should have a file for processing which indicates which specific organic material needs to be preserved for future testing. Be sure that these directions are strictly adhered to and that specimens are stored quickly. So, to summarize, they were euthanizing those strong enough to go to the surface and taking specific parts of them for quote-unquote future testing, which means gosh knows what. And because they knew that they were raising super soldiers, they knew that they were going to be stronger than the wimpy old scientists. So they made sure to lie to them and say, don't worry, I'm sure that up top land has plenty of diseases that are going to infect you when you leave this vault. So we must quickly vaccinate you so you can get out of here. And instead of administering a healthy vaccine, they freaking euthanized them. And then cut them open and took body parts for their psychotic and disgusting tests. This is why Vault-Tec is the most disgusting company in the Fallout lore. Okay, I'm getting fired up. Let's go on. The next little folder of notes is by the Chief of Staff himself. He says in his first entry, "We had very low disposal overhead, thanks to just the excellent harvest ratio this year. Just 74% of the overall graduating class. Incinerations will be done within the week. Good first task for Washington before we begin the real work." I realized I unintentionally skipped a couple entries, so moving backwards we can find the first one and start again in order. Overall harvest was exceptional this year. Lots of superior ratings in the physical categories. Many of our vital organ initiatives are paying dividends. Pain thresholds have been a mostly solved problem for years now, and we're finally getting past issues like cardiac arrest under heavy duress. The genetic material we're gaining this year should help the next generation meet goals we thought were still a decade or more off. Some concerns about aggression levels. We have a few cases of psychological breakdowns due to stress over the years, but incidence was much higher in this group. Going to recommend we synthesize some new tranquilizers just to stock up. Food supply remains best delivery method for general population, but should be concerned about future with science staff too. So, essentially, a very simplified version of what's going on here. After the original students were either inducted into the research staff, incinerated for not being good enough, or whose parts were harvested for research purposes, those parts were actually used to grow more people, to create a new fetus. They would take parts of a person, create a new person, and grow it in what I'm assuming is like a petri dish. And that grown human would be the next generation. And they'd keep testing through the superior genes. This is why they wanted the strongest people, because those with the strongest endurance would make the greatest offspring. Which makes sense why the Institute would want to be here. Their research on people, on growing people. Ugh. It sounds just nasty. And like before, the science staff knew that the residents were much stronger than they were. So they stocked up on tranquilizer darts to knock them out. Man. And I'm assuming because of how long they've been doing this, the brain capacity of these students was faltering because they're all brawn with little brain. Which is why they'd be having psychological breakdowns under stress, because their brains are too not working. And they're constantly angry. I'd be angry too if I was grown from a petri dish. Next up, we learn the identity of the researcher who we read about in the previous terminal. This entry here is called recruitment. Only needed one recruit to scientific staff this year, with Washington joining the genetics team to help me out up here. Subject's physical scores were very low, and he has consistently shown good problem solving and critical thinking. Overseer has concerns about his attachment to some of the younger members of the population. I'm not too worried though. His psychological profile shows that he's very suggestible, meaning he can be brainwashed easy. We'll keep him on the observation deck long enough for those he had personal relationships to graduate out of the population. That gives us some time to acclimate him to the experimental protocols without conflict. We just need to keep him in the dark until then. So they're waiting for all of his classmates to die so they can tell him, okay, your friends are being turned into petri dishes so we can grow more people. Cool. Gotta love Vault-Tec and their lies. Since we've already read the previous entry, let's move on to the okay, it's corrupt. Cool. Leaving the terminal, we can finally explore the rest of this room. We see a door over here, but it's locked. So, after breaking a bobby pin, we can pick this door to see what's behind it. After finally unlocking it, the door opens and we enter another residential area, presumably this time for the research staff. Although, surprisingly, there's absolutely nothing of interest in here. The residential rooms for the students had more than this area does. There's one Boston Bugle sitting on a toilet, but that's really it. Also a dead researcher. Moving on, we see another sliding door. Following it, we lead another staircase leading directly into the Overseer's office, which a couple gunners have made their home. So, terminating them. After they're dead, and Dance catches up with us, we can quickly loot their bodies and explore and save real quick. We can explore the Overseer's office. There's a safe inside the desk here, some mentats underneath one of the drawers, and one working terminal. We also have access to open the doors and open the safe. But accessing this terminal completes the quest, Vault 75. We can disengage locks on both the security doors and the terminal safe on the desk. Continuing on to these Overseer Eyes Only documents. We're starting out pretty strong here. Personnel officers are responsible for admitting residents and obeying standard protocol for sanitation and scans. Research staff is to assist as needed, but otherwise remain in their wing. Adults aged 17 and older will be isolated and disposed of by the head of security. Children under the age of 17 are to be taken directly to the atrium area. As Overseer, you are responsible for introducing the children to the caretaker robots and their sleeping facilities. Research protocols will not begin until the second week of containment. It is recommended that you participate directly in routine story times each evening. This is probably to help kids cope with the fact that their parents are gone, and to distract them from the fact that their parents are never coming back. The kids are probably freaking out when their parents never showed up again. This is horrible. Vault-Tec destroyed these families. They separated the parents from their kids. And anybody 17 and older is taken into a different wing of the vault and incinerated. Disposed of. Those two words right there, disposed of, shows how little Vault-Tec values human life. Disgusting. For the next entry, Vault 75 has been built within the township of Malden, and all families with children aged 5 to 16 have been offered subsidized admittance to the Vault program here. This should maximize the number of residents able to report for admittance in a crisis event. In the event that it becomes necessary, it is preferable to allow potential subjects to remain with their families in the bulkhead area over allowing adults to accompany subjects to the atrium. These subjects will not be admitted to the general population. Some distress is expected in the early days of internment. Please refer to the Vault-Tec's child care conservation protocols if needed. I got nothing to say for this one. And then we get some heads up from the Overseer. Residents aged 18 and older must be removed from the general population annually. Residents who have exhibited genetic promise are to be preserved for genome harvesting and reintegration. 3. Residents of average genetic promise but high intelligence and docility may be recruited to the research staff at Overseer discretion. 4. All other residents to be removed must be cold, or rather, killed. 5. Research staff is responsible for cultivating embryo replacements to maintain consistent resident population numbers. Like I said, Petri dish. Vault 75 is to remain sealed until an all-clear order is issued by Vault-Tec. So like we've already discovered, this vault was based on human genome research on human subjects. We can now move on to the Overseer's personal logs. First up, talk about a new recruit. Worried about the new recruit in science. He's supposed to be a simple observation duties and closely monitored until the subjects he knows and population have been processed. I know we've done this many, many times before, but something about this one feels wrong. Not sure I should have let myself being talked into it. So it sounds like Washington, our friend from earlier, is causing a lot of controversy with the Overseer. Interesting. Next up is nursery's capacity issues. We're having a capacity problem in the nursery. We're as full as we can be in the IVFS, but introducing more residents into the population is going to be problematic. I'd prefer to wait until the next turnover. We'll have to discuss with the chief scientist. So they're filling up, they're making too many kids. So before they keep doing more, they have to wait until the next graduation and kill off some people or recruit people so they can put more in. Honestly, these kids are as good as pets to the Overseer and the staff. It's disgusting. And finally, we get some answers onto why everything's under maintenance and why some of these doors were locked off to begin with. Darn it all. Some kind of wiring issue caused a fire in the archive. We lost some hardware that I'm told will be difficult to repair, if not impossible. Science lost a lot of the historical research data, though I'm told we can get some junior staff started transcribing hard copies. Some of the locks failed once the fire got bad. Worrying, but turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Science staff nearby got in and stopped the blaze quickly. If the locks hadn't failed, then myself or one of the senior scientists would have had to manually open the doors. So, something happened, and a fire was started. My guess is that this fire wasn't a freak accident, but rather was a result of that vault takeover that was mentioned by Washington earlier. My bet is that those two troublemakers that I mentioned cut a wire or two and started a raging inferno in the vault. But we're done here. We now have freedom to check out the safe, which doesn't have that much, but there is a technical document in there. Give that to Project Quinlan, any of you BOS fans. And we have access to the Overseer's personal chambers, with a Grognak the Barbarian comic book, and an end of dungeon steamer trunk. And if we didn't use the terminal to unlock the safe, we have a key now. But there's not really that much else in here. And unlocking that door within the terminal unlocked another door leading back out to the atrium. Here we can swipe our key cards to get back out of the admin area. But if we wanted to loot that gunner that we killed earlier, we can always use the scanner here. But for some reason in mind, the corpse of the gunner vanished. I'm still trying to figure out where he went. Maybe he came back to life. You know, all gamers respawn. And that concludes our time here in Vault 75. We've explored everything. And now all that's left to do is find the entrance elevator and return to the surface. Walking out, we pass through all the corpses of the gunners and synths we killed, and make our way out. To freedom. To the Commonwealth. So let's do a quick recap of what we just saw. Vault 75 wasn't built for the protection of middle school kids after all. It was built to further development of the Human Genome Project. And in service to the United States military, it was built to create a breed of superhumans in the future. But instead of using the forced evolutionary virus, although they did do that in another vault, which we will cover at a later date, they used other human parts. They trained humans and kids rigorously, to the point where some of them died from overexerting themselves, from too much work, from inhumane tests. And their sacrifice got the future generations nowhere. They just got more tests done, and only a handful more researchers to show for all this progress. Although, there is another terminal that I believe may have been cut from the game, where it was a terminal belonging to the two troublemakers, where they talked about the rebellion. And the reason why the vault door is open after all this time is not because of the Institute, it's not because of the Gunners, but because there was a major rebellion that started inside the vault, in which all the stronger created residents broke free, killed the science staff, killed the overseer, opened the vault door, and left Vault 75 for good. Which leads to some fan theories. One suggesting that the Gunners themselves came from this vault. That the reason they were able to start off so strong is because they had this superhuman training from when they were kids in Vault 75. And because they were able to lead the successful insurrection. Although I highly doubt that. Because the Gunners are mercenaries. And clearly if these were the full-on descendants of these Gunners, then wouldn't the Gunners we see be a lot more powerful? Or maybe my logic's flawed there, which it very well could be. I still doubt the authenticity of that theory, but again, it's called a theory for a reason. It's not proven fact. There are other theories about what happened to them. Some think that they survived and joined the Brotherhood of Steel. Some think that they just formed a raider gang. We really don't know. Their future is kind of up to them to decide. But I think this is the way that it should have been from the start. Where the kids had their freedom from the get-go instead of having to have a massive civil war to free themselves. Although they did any means necessary to earn their freedom from the enslavement of their disgusting overseer and that overseer's science team. But the story of Vault 75 doesn't end with the rebellion, and it doesn't end with us leaving the vault. If we head directly to the southeast after leaving Malta Middle School in Vault 75, we reach the North Everett Estates, which has now been infested with super mutants. You may also stumble upon a distress signal from a nearby relay tower. So after we take the time to clear out some super mutants and their hounds, we also have help from the Brotherhood of Steel. So having allies pays off. Whoa, jump scare. Uh-oh. Hold a second, buddy. I need to reload. Okay, he's dead. Moving through the town, we see an intense fight going on between some super mutants and Brotherhood of Steel. One of the scribes just got his head blown off. Some explosions in the distance of an old car. We see a super mutant wielding a sledgehammer. Conveniently named Hammer. Taking care of him, we see another skirmisher in a window. But after the entire neighborhood has been rid of their mutant inhabitants, we see a Brotherhood vertebrate incoming, and the Brotherhood patrol continues. We can loot the scribe, check out Hammer, and watch the vertebrate. It's kind of frozen here for a second. Alright, whatever. But more importantly, there is a bunker here. Backyard bunker. Entering it, we see a true Fallout bunker. A hazmat suit, some food, which we can quickly eat to restore some of our health we lost during the fight with the super mutants. A Nuka-Cola Quantum inside a box. We see a steamer trunk with a bunch of loot. A safe, which we can unlock with a lockpick. 'Pick. but more importantly, a technical document and Wayne's terminal. If we hit R, we can eject a holotape, which you might listen to in the future. But the first entry is of note. Notice the name at the top of the screen. Property of the Turnquist family. The Turnquists, remember, are the two kids who never showed up to the vault. They came back here. October 26th, 2077. 3 days after the bombs dropped. The boys finally cried themselves to sleep. It's been 3 days since the bombs fell, and everything has gone to crap. Our director up at MedTech got advance notice, and if I hadn't put that code into his terminal and forwarded his logs to me, I would have been trapped up there along with everybody else when the lockdown kicked in. I had to make my way on foot to Malden to get the boys. I am so proud of them for remembering the plan. Michael managed to get David away from the teachers and ran and hid like I told him instead of going into that vault. We made it back here into our bunker just as the plane started flying overhead. We're going to stop right there. Their plan was to avoid Vault 75 at all costs. So the father ordered his oldest son to watch out for his younger brother and hide from any Vault Tech personnel and any teachers. And then when the coast was clear, to try to book it towards home, and that the father would meet them halfway. And then together, the group of three would return to their underground bunker and hide out there and hope that the wife returns. Because of their hiding and their eventual flight from the side of the vault, Vault security never recorded the arrival of the Turnquist kids, which is very thankful for them, very lucky for them, that they were able to remain safe from Vault Tech's horrendous experiment. So guys, that is the full story of Vault 75, a horrendous experiment performed by Vault Tech. And I hope you guys enjoyed my first attempt of telling this kind of a story. Again, this is my first go at this, so I'm very new to the whole storytelling world. So I apologize for, sounding like a rookie, because I am a rookie. But a quick announcement about the series. I will be uploading at least one of these per month, maybe more. And we're only going to be covering the 3D Fallout games. So Fallout 3, 4, New Vegas, and 76 will be covered. But 1 and 2 and Brotherhood of Steel will not be counted. As of yet, I might change that down the road. I don't know. But as of now, I want this to be specifically for the 3D games. That being said, guys, I do hope you enjoyed this. This has been one of my passion projects for a while now, and I'm super excited to finally show it to you guys. So without being delayed any further, thank you guys again for watching, and as always, Max of the Beast is out.